What's going on? Hello, A+. This is your boy Adam Perez. We're back once again with a brand new episode review of Bakuage Sentai BoonBoomger. As we're set to go ahead and get to episode number 14 for you guys today. A double header this week, man. I would say you guys are spoiled, but it's really due to my lack of being on time with doing my reviews. As we're playing a little bit of catch up here, I wanted to get this episode review out of the way before we wind up hitting this weekend and they drop a brand new video. I promise I will be a lot more timely certainly next week. I do have a fan expo to go to in Dallas, a convention I'm covering this weekend, but I am off on Monday also to really give me some time to kind of go through all my content and stuff. But don't worry, I will certainly make sure that we get a BoonBoomger review for you guys on a timely manner next week. But look, man, we did episode number 13 earlier this week. Let's go ahead and get into episode number 15, shall we? This episode, I think, really blew me away. I had a really fun time with this particular episode. Not only getting an opportunity to learn a little bit more about Ishiro, but you guys know if you watched our episode 13 review, I was a big fan of the Killer Robo. So the surprise return of the Killer Robo was absolutely fantastic. And getting the opportunity to see our BoonBoomger Marine in action for the very first time in here. So I thought they had a pretty stellar episode, even a villain certainly worth talking about and worth really having to give their all to go ahead and fight against this week. So I felt like the BoonBoomger's back was certainly against the wall, and at the same time, we got the opportunity to have some really great sort of character development in here. So we're going to go through a couple of segments from this week's episode that I was a big fan of. I'll go ahead and grade them, and then I'll give you guys my final grade for the episode towards the end of this review. So let's go ahead and dive in, man. And first off, man, the man of the hour, Ishiro himself, or Chishiro, as some of the team members certainly call him. Look, Ishiro for me, for the most part, not necessarily my favorite character, and I'm sure he probably is for some out there. I don't have a problem with him. It's just that he's so very stoic and so very to himself, and he's very much a loner. And, you can clearly tell he's not the type that really wants to be bothered much by many people. He wants to do his job. He's got people that he's clearly close to, probably very few and far in between, with the exception of maybe just Taya, honestly. But that's really the only person he feels like he's kind of let his guard down with, if you will. He's been very kind of standoffish towards each other, and just in his sense, really just feels like he's a loner for the most part. But Ishiro in this episode really grew on me, man. I thought it was pretty interesting that of all the people in here, he's the one that enjoys the marine the most, going to the aquarium. It's so funny because I love going to the aquarium. There was a very brief period of time in my life where I wanted to be a marine biologist myself. And then I realized, Adam, you probably have to know how to swim in order to do that and get close to the marine life. And so that dream was certainly out of the question. But, of all the very soothing and serene things that a person can kind of experience, the fact that a character like Ichiro finds that level of joy and peace at the aquarium, I think is pretty telling for his character, also along the fact that he has an annual pass, which I find pretty hysterical. But, I do love a couple of insights that we wind up getting from him in here. When we've got Mira asking him the question about, like, what brought you to the aquarium? Like, what did you enjoy about it so much? The idea of him talking about his life as a info brokerage, and we get a cool flashback sequence of him running away from some level of danger. I mean, the guy's got marks all over his face. Like, this doesn't feel like just a normal info broker guy, right? Like, if you're brokering information, like, what kind of information are you carrying around, or you have knowledge about that you've got people certainly hunting you down? This clearly seems like the same job that he had, in which him and Taya kind of wind up meeting each other at some point in time. I'm still waiting for that backstory to certainly tell itself. But it does feel like there's definitely more to this story than certainly meets the eye. And so the fact that he thinks about this particular moment in time in his life, and he discusses the idea that it's really the aquarium that kind of soothed him and sort of changed him as he was, certainly as a person. He's got a really great line in here that really connected to me. And anybody that finds themselves just in a point in their lives where they're just doing too much, he has this line where she says, like, why do you have to come to the aquarium? And he says, I have to make time. And he talks about the idea that, had he not come to the aquarium, that he probably would be a completely different person. And I do think that there's some truth in that, in the sense of I have to make the time, because I think even for me, when I look at it introspectively, there's so many things that I certainly have going on in my life that you definitely will forget who you are a little bit, lose a part of yourself, get so caught up in everything else that you don't find time for who you are. And even find time for certainly the people around you, whether that be your family, your loved ones, whatever the case may be. But the idea that we all have to kind of find time for ourselves. It doesn't matter how hectic our lives certainly is. In order to kind of keep that balance and keep who we are as people, we have to kind of find that time. And so I just thought that was just a really compelling mindset that he wind up having in here. That really connected with me, to be quite frank with you. So, there is a little bit of clearly Ishiro wanting Marine to connect with him. This is something that I kind of predicted in the previous week's episode. And I never really, just so people know, I never look at previews. Once the episode starts in the credit roll, I usually stop the video, because I like to go into next week's episode completely fresh and just be surprised at what we're certainly getting. So I kind of predicted, I think, like, because of the fact that we had Mira and Ahsoka, Officer Joe really fighting over, like, trying to connect with these the Safari and the Marine BoonBoomger vehicles. There was a part of me that was thinking to myself, well, if Gemba got one, I feel like the other oddball out will probably get one, and that's probably Ishiro in here. I do find it interesting that in this episode, when the Marine is activated, that they don't emphasize what it is about Ishiro's choices that he made that wind up activating it. But what I wind up getting away from this is the lesson that Ishiro learns in this episode is to let other people in, and to be a willing partner, and be open for people to certainly help you, right? Like, that's one of the faults, I think, of Ichiro as a character, is the fact that not only is he just so standoffish, but he's got this ego in the sense of believing, hey, I can handle any situation that I'm in by myself. And while it's very cavalier of him and very heroic of him, we quickly do see that he even overestimates the villain that he bumps into here this week. And it's really on Mira to not only come and save him, but also realize, like, I can't do this alone. And I was really fond of just the bond that they wind up growing in this episode. There's a great line in here too, where he's like, you know what? I think I've gained some respect for you finally. And she looks at him, she's like, I don't know how to take that. And I started laughing, because I'm like, bro, we're 14 episodes in. 14. That's what Mira's tripping out about. It's like, bro, we've been teammates forever now, and you're just now getting to this point. That's Ishiro for you. And it definitely made me chuckle. It made me laugh, but I'm glad that it's a lesson that he certainly learned. So hopefully going forward, come episode 15 and throughout, he's a little bit more open about teaming up with people. Who knows? Maybe this is just a connection that he's made with Mira. Maybe he doesn't want to necessarily work alongside Joe or Gemba like that in the future. I don't know, but he seems clearly more open-minded about the situations that he finds himself in, and realizes you don't have to do this all alone by yourself. And I think that was just a really great sort of character growth and development for him. And look, Mira seems to be like the voice of reason in here. The fact that she's just like, like this idea of you wanting to protect this aquarium, but if you do this by yourself, you're gonna die. And so, like, what's the point of that, right? Like, how are you gonna protect something if you're dead? Just a really fresh perspective and slap face of reality to Ishiro that he certainly needed in here. And I think the idea that he becomes open-minded enough to work with somebody else makes the BoonBoomger Marine realize, okay, maybe now it's your time for a partner. Like, maybe we can go ahead and coexist together, sort of thing. And they definitely come to the BoonBoomger's rescue in this episode. But I just thought the Ichiro stuff in here was rather brilliant, and the idea of connecting him with the Marine, and how it fits into his past life and stuff, and how it's truly sort of changed him as a person, I think was just really eye-opening. Some great character work here, man. I think that's one of the reasons why I continue to love BoonBoomger so much, is they have such great character work. But if I had to grade just all the Ishiro stuff that we wind up getting in this episode, Give me an A+, man. I thought it was pretty stellar. I mean, he had some great emotional moments in here, even when he was getting his ass kicked, right? The ability to literally crawl and grab the monster's leg and try and stop him from kind of taking an extra step closer to, destroying the aquarium that he so much beloved, sort of thing. I mean, I love when our characters are raw like that, even when they do not have their abilities to certainly protect them. And so I thought, just from the emotional highs and lows for Ichiro in here, I thought it was really, really beautiful and breathtaking to certainly watch. So if I had to grade this segment of the episode, give me an A+, man, all day long. A+ all day long. I do want to talk a little bit about the action also in here. I thought the action was stellar. Before I get into the action, though, I need to look. I need to. I know I give out extra credit and honorable mentions. I'm probably not going to have an honorable mention in this week's episode, but if I can deduct some points just briefly for the action in here, maybe like zero point 0.2 points, I'm going to go ahead and deduct because of the fact that I just really did not care for. Well, I really enjoyed the team up fight that we wind up having. Once they start sliding like seals, and then you've got seal effects, and you've got like seeing them slide on their stomach and, you know, transpose a seal over their body, like, no, you jump the shark, man. You jump the shark. So -2 points for that in regards to this. But as far as the action goes, I thought the action was pretty stellar in here. Getting an opportunity to see Ishiro take on the villains by himself in here, I thought was really breathtaking to watch. His tumblings and his rolls and his backflips to go ahead and dodge all of those shots, I thought was ridiculous. Just some great choreography and work on their behalf, and some really great usage too of the wheels in this episode. You know, the fact that he charges up his heel wheel, he kicks it, he just takes out some of the minions in here, I thought was dope. The fact that they wind up using the tire chain for the ice, I thought was really breathtaking. Not necessarily breathtaking, but just really unique and creative in that, right? To give them that traction that they certainly need to, traverse across the ice and whatnot to go ahead and get to their villain in here. So I thought it was really great. I will actually even put, along with the action, the villain in here this week too. Rather formidable. I was a big fan of just like the special effects for his ice designs. How he uses sort of his ice barrier, the icicles that he was not only dropping but having them come out of the ground. The fact that Ichiro really couldn't even get sort of a slash or a hit in at first. I thought the effect of him slashing and his whole sword and his hands becoming frozen before he was kind of tossed aside, I thought that was a really great look. The action and the villain in here was quite formidable. And I think, again, because of the fact that we have Cannonborg kind of very much taking the wheel in this regards, the ante was certainly upped, because not only do we have the return of the killer Robo in here, which was with some upgrades, which I thought was brilliant. But the villain in here this week too, the refrigerator monster, I thought was pretty cool also. So if I have to get this the action sequences in this one, you know what? Give me an A. Give me an A for the action and the villain here this week. And then last but not least, we got to talk about the Robo monster, man. The Robo monster. You know, after getting the opportunity to see the BoonBoomger Robo with the claws last week, there was a part of me that was really fascinated to know, like, what's the marine combination going to be? I honestly thought the marine combination was going to be sort of like its own solo thing, but it actually wind up working out perfectly as a combination, which makes sense because these two vehicles were presented to us as combinations, despite the fact that they both sort of woke up individually. I am still curious if Marine has its own individual um, um, formation for the Robo, or if we're always going to see it in a combination. But the combination looked incredible. It has some Godzilla vibes to it, and I mean that in the sense of when you see the tail of the Robo start to kind of glow from the bottom all the way up, and then it goes all the way to the Marine's head, and he like, lets out a blast. I was hoping the blast would be a little bit more ferocious and not just dolphins kind of coming out of his mouth and going into the ocean sort of thing. but it was a really cool effect in regards to how they wind up pulling it off and making it look. I think it's a sick combination, and if anything, it has easily broken my top three of combinations that we've gotten so far for the Robo in here. I think the Knight is one of them, and the Bob the Builder mode is certainly still one of them. And I'll even add the Marine and Safari combo here. So I love the action, love the return of Killer Robo. It was really great to see them battling out once again. I'm assuming this time Killer Robo is in fact done. I'm not quite sure, to be quite frank with you. We'll see if he pops up again somewhere in the future. Leave it up to Cannonborg to kind of come up with new modifications, but we'll definitely see how this one certainly turns out. But if I had to grade the Zord battle in here also, give me another A, man. I had a really good time, and I thought the Robo monster combination in here was pretty fantastic. So let's go ahead and average this out. So if I average that out by 3, we're looking at a 9.3. So I think this probably lands at about an A right now. So yeah, man, I feel pretty confident in that score for this particular week's episode, to be quite frank with you. I might even push that up to it says 9.33, 93. Yeah, it's probably going to stick to an A. Although surprisingly, I will say this. I think the 2 points, the 0.2 certainly screwed me over in this regards, because it does feel more like an A, like a higher A than what I gave episode number 13, because I believe I gave episode 13 an A as well. But this one I actually certainly found myself enjoying a little bit better. But that point two, man, that seal effect really threw it off for me, man. So great score though, regardless. Great score. An A is in fact my average for this week's episode. But look, guys, I want to know your thoughts. Am I too gracious with this A? Was this episode? Should it be more? Should it be less? I definitely want to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section box below. Remember, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. I certainly always want to know your guys, though. So let me know yours in the comment section box below, and we'll certainly talk about this episode until next week's episode. But until then, do me a big favor, as always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. I'll talk to you, Boon. Bye.